All right, we can start.
Okay, so let me quickly present my screen. Yeah, so I initially put together the talk on like what are the existing things out there, and mainly we kind of discussed about um, two options, which is one, should we take the benchmark as data route where we could use something like Locust, Vegeta, or one of the other um, load gen tools to kind of that allow like generic web server benchmarking and use it to get benchmarking data for specific LLMs against model servers. Yeah, there are a few tools here. I think Vishnu mentioned there is something there as well. I'm interested to learn about it. And if you look at the benchmarking as data or benchmarking as code, that seemed to be the preferred option from our last discussion. I think Evan here mentioned that having this extensibility, having it in Python would be useful for the use case that they are looking at. I think we have found this to be pretty useful as well. We kind of started with benchmarking as data in Google, where we wanted to benchmark some of these models. And now we are finding benchmarking as code be more and more useful, and we have a Python-based tool that we are using today. So yeah, couple of things for this meeting. One, kind of decide on the approach on which one works better, and also go through the Red Hat or IBM's tool that was shared. I think a couple of things were shared here. I'm interested in learning about those to see the existing ones, whether they solve the specific use case that we want. And I can also briefly talk about our share, what we are using internally here. I think that is in like an OSS repo that we have put out as well. Kind of see if we can find common ground and see what the next steps are in terms of what we could build. And then towards the end, talk about if this should be a separate project in workgroup serving and yeah, what the next steps there are. So yeah, that's essentially the plan. So yeah, first I think we can talk about benchmarking as data versus code. If any of you has any opinion, and then we can go into sharing the tool itself.
Yes, sure. Thank you. This is Chen. So I actually shared the FM perf tool with you on this doc as well. And so I'm wondering what is the so internally what is your tool? We also have such kind of tool. It's also implementing the benchmarking as the software, right? And
Yeah.
what we did is mostly I can share a slide, one-page slides later about the architecture, but it's almost like orchestration tool. Let me see. Okay.
I
Yeah,
made
we
you a
can
host
present.
in case you want to share your screen.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I'm trying to share. So this is a diagram of our tool. So our tool basically is orchestration layer written in Python as well to quickly launch any type of servers, can be VLM, can be TGI, and also quickly launch.
Chan, are you sharing your folder here?
I think you're
we can
sharing
see
the
a
wrong
list of
screen.
your presentations.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you probably shared the wrong window.
Let me just share my screen, so it will be easier. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So not sure how can I. So this is our tool. So this is the diagram. You can also see this diagram on our GitHub repo, right? So it's a Python tool. It's it's just called Kubernetes native API. What it does is it have the orchestration script to launch different types of servers, to load different models. And then it also has the load generator, can be quickly launched. And that load generator is implemented to benchmarking the highly interactive services. So we really focus on high concurrency of the load, and then each request wants to get back response as soon as possible, like immediately, no queuing delay. However, because this is almost just an orchestration tool, so it's very extendable. So you can easily replace the server from this side and then the load generator from the job. So it's just the configurations you are going to pass. However, we didn't test intensively about different load generators yet, but we are planning to. So I'm wondering, like, what's the so for the benchmarking, we used it already, like for a year internally to test, for example, different servers performance on different types of GPUs, on different shares of GPUs, and so there's some other aspects we also want to achieve by this benchmarking tool. So right now, it's automated deployment. It can do load testing using realistic heterogeneous inference workload. And that load tester is targeting the interactive services. However, other load testers should be able to be launched easily. We just need to test. And then support different types of servers. Right now, we already tested those two. And we can collect the performance data like TTFT and ITL and throughput, and then we can kind of validate consistent results under different levels of stress. And then we also already make changes to extract an energy efficiency metrics, including the energy consumption, so per token energy consumption. So we were thinking this tool can be easily integrated to some CI/CD tool. For example, if you have a repo for server, and then if you behind the scene configure the CI/CD with this tool, it should help you benchmarking the server versions over time. That's a current status. And then actually I also invite Thomas to come to give more descriptions and potentially the demo in the working group of the serving next week. And so here I would like to share this tool with you and discuss if we can kind of like include or merge the effort together in the open source community, and then what are the objectives we are still missing here? So what are the type of benchmarks objectives we want to achieve but cannot be achieved here yet?
Thanks, Chen.
Yeah, we'd love to merge the efforts. We've been using this tool internally for like all kinds of benchmarking, and it would be good to understand like any gaps so that like more people can use it instead of like creating something from scratch. That's the goal. And yeah, and we can probably try to sponsor it from the working group too. I don't know what you think.
Ashok, are you going to present on what GKE is using today, or is that a future discussion?
Yeah, I think I can show what we have as well. I think it's very similar. On just this tool itself, I also took a look. the code a bit since Chen shared the repo. I think, yeah, I was thinking something very similar could be something that we can kind of sponsor from workgroup serving and standardize on. So we could cover all the different model servers. We could make it extensible and make sure it is scalable enough and something that we could use to kind of as objectively measure different models or accelerator performance as possible. So I think, yeah, definitely the FMPerf tool provides a good starting point there. Yeah, I can briefly show what we have. It's a little similar. Let me share.
Is it similar to your proposal?
It is similar to the proposal, but I would say it is not a full-fledged tool or a project yet, right? Okay. We were using Locust initially, and we started prototyping this a bit to kind of build on the VLLM script itself, right? So I wouldn't say it's as full-fledged as the FMPerf tool is now. So it's more in the starting stages, but kind of tries to do solve like similar problems, right? Can actually share a link in here as well.
Do you have a name for this tool yet?
We don't actually. This is so we have this repo on GK where we put in like tutorials and other things that could be useful to run AI workloads on GK itself. So there we added this benchmarking tool as one of the things there. Yeah. So cool. Yeah, we are calling it like a latency profile generator or something like that for now. So essentially, like what we had today was to like automate the infrastructure deployment itself, right? So here we deploy the Kubernetes cluster using GKE with different accelerator and all that. And then in stage 2, we configure the different workloads here. All of it kind of uses Terraform so that it's easier to run to set that up. And then you could deploy your different inference servers using Terraform as well. For example, if you want to run VLLM, you would run a specific Terraform apply within this folder. Similarly, it kind of supports deploying TGI. Jetstream is the TPU model server that Google has open sourced, and Triton Tensor LLM too. So all of these are different Terraform stages, and then eventually you could run the benchmark itself. So the Locust one was what we started with to kind of run benchmarks and get some numbers, export report and all that. And recently we have been looking into this profile generator tool that basically generates like a latency versus throughput curve, specifically like time per output token and request latency itself. And this one kind of started with the VLLM script and then added more things to it here. In terms of one, supporting different model servers. Like I said, you could point it to like VLLM, TGI, or different ones, and get specific metrics from it, right? You could write the report you are getting into like a JSON so that you can parse it. It can also scrape specific model server metrics itself to associate with the current benchmarking run, what the model server like KV cache usage was, what was the queue size and stuff like that. Yeah, essentially we want to use this to provide like recommendations around what would be the right point to auto scale, what is the load you are seeing and all that. So it kind of plugs into Prometheus to do that. And then produces some percentiles on like P90 latency and stuff like that. So yeah, and then you can configure it with the different input lengths to use different data set and all that. So yeah, that's essentially what we have there. So in terms of like, I'm trying to solve, it's somewhat similar to FMPerf, but not as full-fledged yet. It supports a couple of model servers, which hasn't been added to FMPerf yet. So I would say, yeah, if we can use that as a starting point, and if we could add more things that we want, and see if it could be like a serving group project, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. May I ask, what's your progress towards supporting the TensorRT? Because this is really what we want to support as well, but we haven't have the bandwidth to add that.
Yeah, so TensorRT, the tool supports generating requests and measuring like the specific benchmarking numbers with TensorRT. We also have a deployment of TensorRT, which is a little complex today, right? Because you need to like get a model checkpoint, convert it into the TensorRT LLM format before you can deploy, and then run it. So yeah, we have some automation to do that. So
Nice.
yeah, it's yeah, it is supported, but it's a little cumbersome than the other ones today.
Very nice. And another question is for the VLM script, right? VLM benchmarking script is mostly the benchmarking the batch case. So it's sending a bunch of requests all at one time, all at certain arrival rate. It doesn't really target the highly concurrency case. So you mentioned that you made some changes there as well. So what kind of use case you are targeting in your load testing?
Yeah, we are kind of targeting like a stable QPS over a period of time. So if you set it to like 4 requests per second, we want to send that continuously over like a 5-minute period, and kind of measure in steady state what the throughput is, latency is, and things like that. Yeah, so that's essentially what we are doing now. It is not like a distributed load gen tool. For example, for inference gateway, one of the things that was brought up was we might need something that sends like 10,000 QPS or whatnot, right? So for that, obviously, we need to do like multi-node or like distribute the benchmarking itself into multiple processes to do. So those kind of things, obviously, we don't have yet. Right. I saw something about that in FMPerf. So yeah, I'm curious to know.
FMPerf load gen is also highly is also targeting almost one server. So it works with multiple replicas of servers, but it doesn't really handle the truly distributed case. And then so I think that the changes you modified with VLM benchmarks is something similar we do with load gen. So we are also targeting like 64, 128, or even 512 concurrent requests sending all the time. Those are the load gen benchmark as well. But definitely, I agree. There's something in between missing that should be the more realistic distributed setup.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, and our tool lacks like streaming support. Like you have mentioned, you could measure time to first token. That is something that we want to eventually add. So yeah, I think those kind of things we could also figure out. Since both of it is based on Python, we could um, um, kind of like consolidate on these things. So we could get the best of both worlds, right, with a single common tool.
So are you saying this tool, so if we work together, we would like to expand this benchmarking tool to actually also be able to benchmark other stuff like the gateways, like proxies of as a distributed system?
I think so. So the tool, one, we want to be model server agnostic to cover different model servers. Two, we want to get different metrics, and we want to support specific scenarios, right? For example, if we are using instance gateway and point the tool towards it, can we actually measure how performant instance gateway is? And instance gateway probably does some scheduling or load balancing level improvements. So can we measure some of that? And the other one I called out in the talk is the auto scaling part, right? One, if you want to measure with multiple replicas of the server, how well it is doing. And when we auto scale, whether we are still able to meet the latency target and things like that. So I think like we could start small or with what we have today, but then eventually it would be good to expand to supporting those cases too, for it to be more widely useful.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a very promising direction.
And I think, Ivan, you mentioned a Python-based tool would be useful. So I'm also interested in hearing what use cases you might have.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, our initial use cases are less focused on measuring model server performance. And so with respect to kind of where this working group serving is focused, I think we're like where our goals would fit in would be more like second order goals or, after MVP, after prototype. The clients we work with in the government are really interested in benchmarking models and not servers specifically. And so having a tool that can test models that are deployed within their own environments for quality of outputs is really important. They are interested in like the cost of deployment as well. But in terms of priorities, it's much more on how do we have tools that allow us to scale up our benchmarking of different models on servers to compare their performance in different kind of mission, very mission specific contexts. So we work for the government. So that's kind of why the focus is very much on how do we measure, the performance of models in these kind of very sensitive, secure environments. So again, slightly different. Interested in the tool. We're interested in the tool and definitely interested in driving it. But in terms of like reporting progress back to or being involved and then reporting things back to our sponsors, they're going to be more interested in how can this help me solve that quality piece versus cost piece, at least initially. So
Ivan, which company do you work for?
It's the Applied Research Lab for Intelligence and Security. It's actually a lab that's part of the University of Maryland, but it's a university affiliated research center. So we are sponsored by government and situated at a university. They're really weird. They're somewhere between like the private sector and academia and the government.
Yeah, I think we touched a little bit on the quality side
Yeah.
of things in previous community meetings. I guess there wasn't any agreement, right? But I think in general, we are focusing on like the performance, like in terms
That makes
of
sense.
system and infrastructure, right?
Yeah. The reason I'm particularly interested in benchmark as code is just because, if we start with a tool like FMPerf or GKE, and it's written in Python, that makes it extensible. And so our team could prototype and make it extensible to potentially, test multiple models in parallel on self-hosted infrastructure. And so that would be useful for us if it follows that paradigm and it's in Python, right? It makes it more extensible and we have a nice starting point. We're not starting from scratch because most of these models do need to be deployed on-prem within our own infrastructure. So kind of not completely orthogonal goals, but definitely don't align with your initial goals. I think the things we're focused on would probably be non-goals for this group to start, right, for an MVP. We would benefit from the performance of an infrastructure side of things, but not the number one goal. So I'm just here to take notes and listen and learn about what tools are already out there mainly.
Yeah, from IBM and Red Hat, we do have a tool called LM Eval. that we can share maybe later.
Okay.
Yeah, it focuses on the quality side of things instead of like a FM perf tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen this. Okay.
Yeah, and like you said, I feel like yeah, we can extend to support quality evaluations too, because the driver for benchmarking those and getting the responses is kind of similar, right? And you'd essentially extend that and then yeah, look at the response to check the quality and all that. Yeah, it's a possible extension, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely would treat that as a non-goal for initial effort.
Yeah, I think so. And Evan, I think we can sync afterwards, and I'll share some of the work our team is doing regarding evaluating the quality and
Yeah.
how trustworthy a model is and so on.
Okay, that'd be great.
Cool. I think the last topic there is next steps. Yeah, so there I mainly wanted to check if it makes sense. Yeah.
Ashok, just a second. So I just wanted to add, yeah, I went through the doc, but I think we have a tool which focuses on slightly different aspect, not exactly on what FMPerf does, not on response quality. So for example, if you look at FMPerf or any LLM load test tool, they help us providing metrics which are KPIs like time taken to emit first token, inter token latency, as well as time taken per output token, those kind of metrics, which mostly fall under model server benchmarks category in this doc. But I was just curious if we are still looking for a generic web benchmark, which is like, family of tools like Locust, Apache Bench, Vegeta, and so on. So I would like to share some details on a similar tool that we have, but KPIs are different. So would you mind if I just take 2 to 5 minutes to share those details and see if this is something that we need or, at least have in roadmap?
Yeah, go ahead.
Definitely.
Yeah, sure. Just a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, it looks like I do not have participant. Yeah, can I get access to share my screen? It's Vichalla.
You should be able to, because you're a co-host. Let me change. Let me make you a host.
Yeah, sure.
Can you try it?
Okay. Jan, I think you provided access to Vishnu Challa, but I joined from a different laptop, which has ID called V Challa.
Okay. Yeah, is there anything I can help open up for you?
I have everything opened up already in my laptop, so yeah,
Okay.
if I get the share access, I should be able to.
Yeah, you're a host now, so there's no reason that you can't share. Can you try again?
Okay. Okay, I'll share it in my personal laptop itself, what I want to talk about. So
Okay.
actually, I was interested in, I'll just paste a small output on how the tool emits some metrics in the chat. Maybe from there I can steer the discussion. So yeah, before you even look at that output, I would like to share some details on what we are actually trying to do. So instead of directly talking to LLMs and inference endpoints, we recently had a RAG application which basically has a LLM inference endpoint in the backend, and it is a service written on top of that LLM endpoint, wherein we have a bunch of
Sorry, Vishnu, are you sharing the right doc, like the
Yeah,
light
yeah.
speed performance?
So we have a RAG service on top of it, which basically has a bunch of fast API endpoints exposed. So what kind of testing here we are doing is we're trying to test application which is backed by an LLM. So we use this tool Vegeta, which basically runs this command in background. For example, if you want to run a 5 minutes duration test with 10 parallel workers, and what this command actually simulates is it opens up 10 parallel sessions, simulating real-time scenario where 10 users are parallelly talking to the chatbot or the LLM inference indirectly and trying to get answers to their question. So some key areas that it covers is every user, when they ask a question in the chatbot window, they will have to wait until they get response, and then only they can ask the next question, which is kind of a synchronous communication manner. So in order to simulate that, we have this parameter setup, which will basically restrict the maximum amount of parallel sessions to 10, and also they will keep maximum connections to 10, which will be reusing the same exact connection. That way, we make sure that we have synchronous communication with the LLM inference server in the background. And then, we only have a specified amount of users active for a given time duration. So here we do not send requests based on a request per second or these many amount of requests in a certain time, but instead we do duration tests and see what actually our app is capable of in terms of throughput, latency, and HTTP status codes. Now, if we look at the chat output that I have shared. So this is the output that it looks like on a specific endpoint, wherein let me switch to Zoom. Okay, I don't think I'll be able to do that. Just a second. So here is how the output looks like. I mean, it's the same thing which I shared in the chat. So wherein it just gives us the amount of total requests that it was able to send and their HTTP status codes and a statistical distribution of different latencies. So this one is not primarily focused on every single token or inter-token latency that is being emitted from the model, but instead how much time did it take to give the entire response to the specific question. So it's more of like a HTTP benchmarking instead of benchmarking the model inference and time taken to emit per token or the next token, or the other aspect, which is evaluation. So yeah, we did use this tool and on our RAG service in order to understand how different type of models are adding up extra latency. And also we did test without model as well to see how our application standalone without a model interaction is being performing. So this is like a HTTP benchmarking aspect. I'm not sure if you're looking for this one. Looks like primary focus is on model hosted benchmarks, but yeah, I will open up forum for questions now.
So is there something about this that, like, you're using Vegeta to do HTTP benchmarking against a RAG application? Did you extend Vegeta in some way? Like, is there something unique about this, or is this just Vegeta against a hosted like application that you guys?
So yeah, we did write up a wrapper. So what we do differently is, I can show you here. Oh, just slow. So we did not just plainly use Vegeta because we had some application specific code that we needed to take care of. So what we did was we just imported Vegeta as a library, and then here we generate requests which are specific to each endpoint. So it's just like generating a HTTP request with header, required JSON, and required body that it accepts as a valid request, and then append the query which a user usually talks to, while talking to an LLM. So those queries are taken from an example data set, which are specific to OCP, for example. So these are a list of questions that we had. I mean, this product is primarily focused on answering questions related to OpenShift and Kubernetes specific. So it takes in these queries. In each of those HTTP requests, it randomly shuffles these and generates multiple HTTP requests and then sends them in a distributed manner to those endpoints. So by the time this request reaches to an LLM, how it reaches is like internally this RAG application generates a prompt, taking this query as input, appending some relevant context, and also appending with some conversation history which it already had. And that prompt goes an input to the LLM. LLM processes it and gives us the whole response. So if we look at the KPIs, when it says latency, it basically counts in the entire round trip of how much time did it take for that inference server, including our app latency, to answer that question and give us a response. And when we look at the throughput within that given specific duration test, how much actually throughput that inference server or our application was able to achieve is what it talks about in throughput, like how many total success responses within that given time, which will help us to understand, if we have this much of distributed setting within this duration, what's the throughput that we can expect and how many users can successfully get answers through our application, and what would be the statistical distribution of latencies as well as HTTP status codes. Fortunately, we did not have any internal server errors or client-side timeouts. Most of them were, all of them were literally 200 responses at this point in time. But it will help if you have an application which might be, going across some errors to detect early in a shift left approach.
Thank you. Got it.
Right. If we do not have any questions, I will just go ahead and stop sharing screen. I can just post the link of this tool in the chat.
Thanks, Vishnu. I think this one addresses some of the locust related issues that we had with being able to send like constant RPS and things like that. So that's definitely good to know.
Yeah, this one is more focused on HTTP benchmarking, instead of like LLM performance, instead for like what LLM load test and FMPerf do.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so how do we wanna move forward? Do we have any decisions to make here, or?
I would say, yeah, the FMPerf tool looks good in terms of it being Python based and a little similar to what we want to do as well. So as a next step, like Terry, I wanted to check with you on what would you recommend if you want to kind of consolidate on the benchmark as a code tool with Python, and what would be the best way to like share something, some other stuff that we have added as well into a common tool, and would it be like a separate workgroup serving project? If that is the case, what are some other things we need to do to get there? And on the FMPerf side, some questions I have, I probably still need to take a deeper look. Maybe we could start with the crux of what it has in this a new project, and then kind of expand from there, so that we could add the other things to be solved there as well.
Yeah, Chen, do you know if FMPerf is open to relocate to Kubernetes 6?
Yeah, it's completely open sourced, and then we would like to donate it to anywhere if beneficial to the whole community. Yes, we were thinking about CNCF, but it takes a long time to, sandbox the CNCF project. And if it will benefit WG serving group, it will be fantastic.
And Ashok, maybe a question to your team. Would your team be open to like collaborate on existing project, or do you have any preference to like starting something from scratch, like what other projects like the serving catalog and the instance gateway? Those are like projects from scratch, right? What's your preference there from your team's perspective?
I would say starting something from scratch where we take some existing things as like the base to start with would be more preferable, mainly because of the existing project like FMPerf, if there are specific things that we would like to change fundamentally, like for people who are using FMPerf on your side, also it might be a bit challenging. So I think that part is the only concern I have. I definitely like the core piece of FMPerf, and I think we could use it. But I'm not sure if we take the existing project as is, if we would need to change it too much for your liking, or yeah, kind of.
Yeah, from us, it's like I think as long as the user interface do not change significantly, for example, how to launch a request, right? And if we can make it even easier for us to quickly launch other jobs or benchmarks, there's no problem from our side. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll probably share the meeting notes with some other folks who might be interested from AGK as well. And yeah, we could follow up from there too.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, definitely like take a closer look at the project and understand like any gaps, any additional requirements that your team or other community members may have, and like let's try leverage existing effort if we can.
Okay, makes sense.
Any other questions? Any other things to discuss?
Yeah, I think that's maybe what I had. I don't know if anyone else has any question.
Yeah.
I see
So
that. Yeah, go ahead, Chen.
my comment is if you feel it's necessary to make it recurring, we can make it recurring, meeting recurring, because we are both taking a look at others' existing code and then what's needed goals there. What are the gaps we need to fill? And another question is, Ashok, if you talk to your team and then so how many people in your team are actually working on this benchmarking tool?
Yeah, we have a team of 4 or 5 people that are currently working on this. Obviously, we have some internal product priorities as well, so things change as it comes. So on the OSS side itself, I need to see who will be the regular contributors that we might have. But at least, yeah, currently that's the state.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tarek,
from our perspective, we have 3 separate teams, sub-teams working on like similar things. So we'd also love to merge the efforts. So if there's any good decision from the community, that would be good to convince the leadership in our team. So yeah, I saw that Dan also joined. Dan, do you have any additional questions? Do you have any tools internally at Bloomberg that you'd like to share?
We did build something internally, mainly focused on like a benchmarking ARM workload. Yeah, we were like using the K6, actually built on top of K6. But yeah, but it's very specialized in like ARM, like a workload benchmarking, and not a general like a benchmark tool.
Okay. Did you were you here for the FM perf introduction?
Maybe I've missed the early part of the meeting.
Okay, that's fine. We can share the recording afterwards, and you can catch up.
Sure. Yeah.
To see like just to see if that's something you might be interested in reusing for your internal
Okay. I'll take a look.
team as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
I think that's mainly it. Maybe we can set up another session next week or sometime to have further discussions.
Okay. All right, everyone. Have a good day then. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.